Yeah.
All right, so let's get started. What would I like to do? Get started. And and so we could, it's small. We'll just go with the flow, you know. You teach best what you most need to learn. So if you guys want to jump off and go down or into a rabbit hole, you're more than welcome to. So how we're going to introduce ourselves today. We're going to introduce who we are, anything you'd like to introduce about yourself, and something that brings you joy. So for
Hello.
me, hello. So,
Sorry, I know you go. I just started, so I just saying hello. I'll be
cool.
quiet now.
We just started too, so no worries.
All right.
So my name is Phil Valentine, and actually my full name is Philip Alton Valentine, and Alton is a derivative from John Alden, who came over on the Mayflower with Priscilla Mullins. So I'm direct descendants of Mayflower people. I don't know what that does for England, you know, people that like we left England all those years ago and said, see ya. And something that brings me joy recently. Well, I got, actually, it's kind of an interesting story is that my wife Sandy gave up gluten and sugar about almost 15, maybe 18 months ago. But 2 months ago, I gave up gluten and sugar, and I've lost 20 pounds. And the most miraculous thing is my energy returned. I was feeling, I don't know if it was all the emotional stuff or whatever, but I was pretty listless and discouraged and despondent, and just eating well and exercising. I actually outwalked my dog over the weekend. I went for over 4, then 5, and then I was going to do 6 on the next day. And he backed out after 2. He was like, I don't want to go that far. He was lagging behind. And I was like, okay, so we'll just cut it short. But after doing that, having energy returned, I was able also to return to writing, and I've spent 80 hours to 100 hours finishing my book on my Appalachian Trail. And so it's all formatted, it's all edited. We're just working on the cover, and it'll be posted to Amazon hopefully within 2 weeks. So that's kind of brings me joy as well, that I would actually have a book that's kind of like I don't know when you exactly go from a writer to an author. And if you self-publish, are you still considered an author because you self-published your own book? I don't know. She's giving me affirmation, so that's good. So that's bringing me joy. The return of energy, just figuring out what the next steps are, you know, day by day. So who's next? Who'd like to go and talk about something that brings you joy?
Here, I'll go.
Okay.
My name is Khalees. I know a lot of y'all on here. I think something that brings me joy, I'm just going to say this because this just happened, but like car rides and conversations. You know, we just drove to Scotland, which was a very long drive in the car, but it was so beautiful, and me and mom were just like, look at all of these houses and look at the views and like the hills and everything. And then we had really good conversations in the car, and that brings me joy today.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Khalees. Anybody else? Everybody gets to go. So Neetha's got her hand up too.
Hey, I'm Neetha. I am so excited to see this whole contingent of English people and in here. That definitely brings me joy. But what definitely brings me joy now is when I walk into my mom's room and my grandson is sitting on her lap and she is reading him a good night story, and that is a great grandma having that impact on him. And I just see that moment of peace and calm. And although the whole rest of life may be crazy, in that minute, I just find 100% pure joy.
Thanks, Neetha.
I'll go. Hi, my name is Misha Zakrevsky. I'm from the Connecticut C-Car Contingency, and I've had the pleasure of meeting a lot of you on this webinar today. One of the things that brings me joy, I feel like Nitha and Khalees are going to know what I'm going to say, is just the anticipation of meeting Nathan and Khalees for the first time in person on Sunday. I will be in London, and they're going to come to London to visit me. So I'm so excited about that. Just waiting with anticipation. So thanks everyone for being here. And so nice to see so many faces.
Who's next? Don't be shy.
I'll go.
All right.
Sorry, Mike. So I'm Laura, and a little bit about me. Since Phil talked about, the Mayflower, I'll just talk about my family being related to Peter Stuyvesant, who, founded New Amsterdam, which is now New York City. And also, this is infamy, but Eric the Red, the Viking. So anyway, yeah. So what brings me joy, though, what comes to mind this morning is playing with my 3 cats, because they love to play, and when I'm home on the weekends, I just get so much joy from running around the house or providing some kind of target for them to hunt. So yeah, it gives me exercise and just brings great joy to my heart.
All right, we're doing this orderly thing. So Sandra, you're up next. And oh, you can't be. Mike, she's saying, please no, please no. Mike, can you bail her out?
Hey, hi guys, hi everyone. I'm Mike, and believe it or not, my surname is Strange, and it is, as I say, strange but true. I remember there was a band many years ago called Visage, and there was a guy called Steve Strange who was quite famous. And I was quite devastated to find out that that was his stage name, not his real name. So I'm a real McCoy Strange. And apparently it was forefathers that were Lestrange from France that ended up in Ireland, and they dropped the LE. So hence, there we go. Something that makes me quite happy, I had an hour to kill before I jumped on this thing, and I took my youngest son. We've got a nice little Portuguese restaurant just down close to where I live. And we both had a Prego roll, and it was quite cool just to turn the phone off and just have a nice, cool time with my 14-year-old, just sort of reminded me, whoa, quality time. So that makes me happy. I've got 3 boys, spending a bit more time, quality time, because I'm normally quite freaking busy. So that's cool for me.
Thanks, Mike. I don't think Sandra's ready yet. Are you ready? All right.
Typical, fill the gob and then you're asked to speak. My name is Sandra Lusty, and I am in Ireland. Thanks for the shout out there, Mike. I'm in Dublin, Ireland, and what brings me joy? God, so many things bring me joy. Usually, when I'm having a really good belly laugh, when I laugh from my toenails, yeah, I just feel joy all over the place, yeah, there's something about connecting with people that are my tribe. The joy just magnifies and amplifies. So I'm very happy. I'm very happy about that. And I might, if you can get over to Dublin, just come over to Dublin. It's like an hour across the plane at the Grant. Thanks. That's me.
Thanks. Ada, do you want to say hello?
Hello?
Why, sure. I'm Ada. Can you hear me?
I can.
Awesome. I'm Ada, and I guess things that bring me joy, having my own space to take care of me and my stuff.
Thank you. Karen.
Hi, I'm Karen. Just moved back to the UK on the 7th of July, I moved back from the US. So it's really nice to be home, and I'm definitely getting some joy from seeing old friends and family and appreciating the place where I live in Yorkshire as a 46-year-old in a way that I clearly did not when I was 18 and just wanted to get to London and New York and Paris and not live here. So it's I'm enjoying exploring it with my dog. I brought my rescue dog with me at huge expense. But I'm very happy. She's the world's most expensive rescue dog, but I'm very glad to have her here, and she's loving exploring, you know, the countryside. And I'm also enjoying my yoga. It's been part of my recovery, and I'm enjoying practicing in the garden at my mum's house. I know that's not going to last very long, but I'm enjoying it while I can. And I'm also enjoying BBC iPlayer, which I did not have access to in the last 8 years. So it's nice to catch up on some good BBC drama. So yeah, I'm good.
Thanks, Karen. Chris, do you want to say hello and something you enjoy?
So, all right, I've tapped to speak. Am I speaking?
Yes, you are, and you're introducing yourself and something you enjoy.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, my name's Chris. Something that brings me joy is actually, and I don't mean to say this is in the sense of I don't ever get out, because I had first it was COVID, and then I was in a really nasty car accident. So I'm sitting here with that's why my camera went a bit weird, because I had to go but I was sitting here with a broken hip and what have you. And it's just lovely to speak to people. That brings me joy. So literally conversing and being able to have conversation with people brings me joy. But thinking about it, it always has. You know, I find people are wonderful to be around. I find, you know, when they tell their stories and just getting to know people in a more deeper level than the surface. I love that type of thing. I mean, many years ago, and I don't mean to say this, but I think that's the whole reason I barflied in the first place. Because I just love to speak to people. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Migdalia, do you want to say hello and introduce yourself? Are you listening? Or are you just listening? I guess she's just listening. Okay, so here is your next question. And you can just put these answers in the chat. You can just open up your mic and say something, but describe a joyful person. And so far in my chat, all I see is Hulu is good. So maybe you're joyful when you're watching Hulu. I'm not sure.
I don't think I can do chat. I think.
Well, maybe you can't, Chris, but that's okay.
I can't chat. I'm sorry. I can't do the typing. I'm sorry.
Well, don't worry about it. You can. How do you describe a joyful person?
Well, so I think somebody that knows where they're going. I would say. So yeah, I'll leave it.
Know where they're going. And we also, can you read the chat?
I can't. No.
All right. So we also have people saying content.
I'm on safe driving mode.
Oh, that's all right. That's fine. So I'll read it to you. Someone who has accepted life on life's terms, someone who can appreciate the beauty of the ordinary, bubbly, positive, smiling, accepted, humble. A joyful person is pleasant to be around. They are generally positive and optimistic. Someone who is light and bright, who smiles with their eyes and lives with self-trust and confidence. Wow. Someone who wears life lightly and who is optimistic, accepting, positive smiles, wears Crocs. Yes. Khalees, you have your hand up.
I don't know how to type this, but like I'm a vibe person. Like I vibe with people, the aura, I don't know, the body language, the something. Like I can have a conversation with somebody, maybe I don't know if it's their tone of voice. Like I just spoke to somebody today that was interested in training, and like we just clicked, we just vibed. Like sometimes I don't know how to describe it or what that is, but it's just a vibe. I'm just gonna call it that. Like the aura, I don't know.
It's kind of like when Neetha and Khalees showed up at the Recovery Coach Academy, right? Just vibed. All right, so we want to describe that. Some of you dove into the next question a little bit too, But when you look inside and you think of your joy, how do you define it? What is it? What is it?
I'd say, oh, can I speak?
You sure can, Chris. Jump in anytime.
And I'd say when I think I get a feeling of inner contentment. It's the way I want to describe that. It's sort of sitting there and then realizing that all the problems are just what you create yourself, and they're all in your head and they're not really existing. And then you sort of realize that everything is really, really okay. And it's just that contentment sitting there, and it's very tranquil, no ripples, just like that for me.
Like that. Thanks, Chris. Khalees.
I was just going to say, like, whenever I'm sitting here kind of like reflecting on joyful experiences, I think there's not really much planning into them. They seem kind of mundane and they just happen. It's not like I don't plan to be joyful or to plan to have a great conversation or plan to have these experiences. They just kind of happen. You know, it's like I was saying to my son the other day, he was outside of the yard and then he looked at me and he was like, Mom, I really love you a whole bunch. And I just said, I just love the most mundane things like that, where he like looks at me. He didn't want anything, you know, surprisingly. Or like I said, conversations in the car, like we didn't plan that. It just happened. And being in the moment, I guess. And yeah, mundane. I don't know, mundane things.
So some other responses are great energy, being at peace with myself and my surroundings, childlike wonder, peace, no stress, peace, hope, excitement, the feeling of being in the right place at the right time, inner peace, being present in the moment, complete authenticity. Do you see any commonalities in those definitions? Cool. What's the opposite of joy? What's the opposite of joy?
Pain.
Pain.
Fear, pain.
Sorrow, profound sadness, pessimism, fear, sadness, stress. For me, being distressed, not present, distracted. Yeah. I asked you that question because I want to know too, do you think, well, let me go back to this question. What's the difference between joy and happiness?
Can I speak to that?
You sure can.
Very simply, joy is something that I believe is eternal. Always have access to that. Happiness is situational or circumstantial.
Ooh. You went deep right away. I love that. Meisha.
This is a great question, and one that I have been exploring for a long time, especially since I've gotten into recovery. I feel like happiness is kind of like a state of being. Like just kind of you're always at a happiness level. Like you can always achieve happiness. Like if you're just at that state, where joys are moments and experiences and can be a little bit more fleeting. I wanted to read something, if that is okay, because I feel like this is to this conversation. Someone sent this to me yesterday. There is no happiness. There are only moments of happiness. Spanish proverb. How happy we are right now may hinge on dinner time, whether it is just before or just after. It may also depend on whether we're examining ourselves to see if we are happy or not. There's nothing like a little introspection to convince a person of the futility of life. Just asking the question, am I happy, is enough to put him or her in a blue mood. Moments of happiness, like creative thoughts, pass before us all the time. If we want to enjoy them, it's up to us to reach out and take them when they appear. The opportunities are boundless, and they all come dressed up like other people. No one has ever been happy for a long time in isolation. We are not by nature solitary creatures. God gave us people to be with. And as an incentive to be kind to one another, God made us each a source of happiness for others. If there's anybody around, I won't have to look for happiness today. And that stood out to me because of this conversation, because of what Chris said in his introduction. So I thought that maybe I could share that because it seemed like it resonated with this conversation.
Where did it come from? Where's it? What is it from a book?
Yeah, a friend sends me a devotional like every day. It's from one of those Hazelden books. It's called In God's Care, Daily Meditations on Spirituality and Recovery.
Cool, thank you. Khalees.
I think it's really interesting because what Laura said, I was kind of thinking the opposite, and then kind of what Maisha just said, like about like we can all be happy. Like I can think about when my mom brings me chocolate at home, I do a little happy dance. You know, I was doing a little happy dance, helping a student do their RCP application. Like I have happy moments, but like joy to me is like deep, heartfelt experiences. Like I can be happy, but like I can be happy, but like joy is like inside like my heart. Like I can see it, I can feel it. Like I don't know. To me, I guess happiness comes easy. Like, and I think that's it. And I like to that I just wrote that quote down, like God made us each a source of happiness to each other. And like I said, like I can have happy conversations, I get happy all the time, but joy to me is just really deep.
Natha.
Oh, okay.
I'll get to you, Chris. Thanks. We'll let Natha go first.
Wow, this is really interesting. So happy listening to everybody and thinking about it. I think happy feels it's that superficial stuff that just happens. You know, it almost doesn't feel as important and I kind of think about like right now, I'd say I am pretty joyful internally. I could be joyful all the time. And I have to control what influences on the outside decrease that joy. Because when I put the blinders on and I just do the things I love and I'm with the people I care about and, you know, I do the work I love, I can be pretty flippin' joyful all the time. And then somebody wants to come and rain in my front yard and I'm like, oh, joy decreases. So, yeah. And I think I have gotten better. I mean, I remember I think it was you said to me one time, not my people, not my tribe. And when, like Khalees said earlier, when I'm with my tribe and I have that vibe, I feel eternally joyful inside.
Thanks, Natha. Chris, you want to add something?
Yeah. My neighbor came round 2 or 3 days ago, and she knew that I was in my chair, you know, most of the time, and she brought me a dinner and a dessert, and it was just such a lovely moment, you know, that somebody would just take the time to do that, and because lots of people aren't neighborly these days at all. And she was really bright and smiley, and it just really made me happy in that moment. And I thought that was just beautiful. So sharing is happiness, but it could also be joyful. But when I think about joy, I had a picture in my head that was me literally standing on a beach with the sunset, you know, and me just looking out to the sea with my arms stretched out, and that's joy to me. I mean, being in that situation is you know, as a picture is joy. But happiness was when I received that cake and that dinner. I was really happy from another person, you know, giving of themselves made me happy. And also, you know, in me giving in the same way to other people makes me happy. You know, you can't not feel happy once you've given even a lollipop to somebody that's there was somebody walking past the house, you know, a week ago with a kid, and they dropped their lollipop, so I went in and got them another lollipop. That's an occasion that made me feel happy, you know. So I think that's the difference. And thank you to I didn't retain the name of the other lady that read out the passage, but I understand that, yeah, and other people to answer that with those other people in that situation of giving and sharing, or you need other people there to do that. So that's happiness. Joy is a personal thing for me, deep down, and I know, yeah, that's joy. There you
Thank
go.
you. Uh, I coming up in September and October in Rhode Island, Connecticut, Rhode Island, United States, state next to Connecticut. I head to the beach and the striped bass are running off the beach. So every time I step on the beach, I hold my arms open and just say, yes, I'm so glad I'm here. I'm filled with joy. You know, on that same beach too, I found a vase. And so I picked up the vase and a genie popped up and it offered me one wish. And I said, I want to be happy. The next thing I know, I was living with 6 dwarves and working in a mine.
Very good.
I'm sorry.
That's very good.
I got Nathan for that one for a little bit. She was like, where is he going with that one? But anyway,
How long do I have to be in safe driving mode, by the way? It's not enjoyable.
you don't have to be in safe driving mode at all. I don't.
Why am I? How do I get out of it?
I don't know.
Oh, really? I think I'm going to leave and come back in because I can't see anyone, and it's I've
Okay,
just got like a blank screen. So I'm going
gotcha.
to try and attempt to come back in. I'm sorry.
Not a problem.
We'll let you back in.
Is joy a personal choice? Why or why not? Meisha.
I think that happiness and joy can often be a personal choice. I think we get into danger zones when our happiness or our joy is conditional. Like, if I get this, then I'll be happy or joyful. If this happens, then I think that a part of joy or happiness, and I think I'm starting to get the words confused now, so I'm just using them both, is that there's a lot of acceptance that we have to deal with. For example, I'm going to use this example. I looked at the weather for my upcoming vacation, and it is going to rain every day according to the forecast. And I can do a couple of things. I can take that and I can be like, God damn it, like I'm gonna have a crappy time because it's gonna rain, and and I can dwell in that. Or I can say, hey, let me pack my raincoat and this and that and the other thing, and let me just make the most of my time. So I think like I have a choice in that matter. And I think that's, in most cases, I have a choice. Like it's about how I internalize things. Am I accepting life on life's terms, or am I trying to fight against something? Like all of a sudden I'm all powerful and I can control the weather. I can control people's emotions. I can control outcomes. I don't think so. So I think it's just a matter of like me learning how to accept life and looking at life differently.
Thank you. Khalees.
I guess I'm going to go back to the point whenever I said joy and happiness, and I'm just reflecting, like, I think that I kind of struggle with this, if I'm being honest, to say that I can choose and just make myself happy or joyful. But then I was also thinking, like, sometimes I like to go to nature. I'm a big walker, the trees, like I put my headphones in, I zone out, and I just have a real appreciation for the world, the flowers, the mud, I don't know. And I can have joy stepping away from the busy world and life and everything that's going on and just be in the moment in my walks. And that brings me joy. But that's not happiness to me because I feel it. Like I said, I'm going back to that. To me, joy is like a deeper feeling. Being happy, I think I really struggle with this, because I have to accept life on life's, accepting life on life's terms. I don't have choices all the time. But I'm the type of person where I'm like, before I can overcome this situation, let's say there's a situation, I'm like, we have to have a whole conversation and talk about it. But sometimes people aren't ready to have a conversation and talk about it. Just because I'm ready to have a conversation and talk about it doesn't mean everybody else is. So that can simmer in me sometimes, and that's why I'm saying I think that this is something I need to work on. I'll take full accountability.
I love that you process things out loud. You're just like, what the? I love it. It's great. Nathan.
Okay. you wouldn't love if she processed it out loud and you lived with her all the time.
I never
So
know.
let's just clarify that. Can
Okay.
you say the question again, the original question you asked?
Is joy a personal choice? Can you choose joy?
Oh, I go back to kind of, it's what I allow into my life. And I think by, sometimes for me, there are sometimes I've felt in the past that if these people, or if this situation, or if this went right, then that would bring me joy. And what I've realized is, when I can find that joy and satisfaction and within myself and block the rest out, then I don't actually need what I think I was looking for to make me joyful. But sometimes that takes me 2 or 3 weeks of 5 a.m. journaling, sending random messages to people. Khalees thinks out loud. I do it by Facebook Messenger. It's just a different, but yeah. And I guess kind of when I take the time to just breathe and sit, even in the days that are hard, when our family is not functioning like how I imagine it would be, I can find joy when I acknowledge how far we've come and what we're doing. And I just have to sit with that. And then it all becomes better. Yeah.
Great.
It's the right way.
Well, thank you. Laura, then Chris.
I'm probably just going to echo what Neetha just said, but for me, I do believe that I can choose joy. I think it can be a choice, but I think it also is something that I get swept up by, because there certainly have been surprises, things that have so beautifully violated my expectations that caused a response of joy, from every cell in my body. So I think it definitely is something that I can choose. I was a woman of sorrows, if you will, for many decades of my life. And, joy kind of found me in 2007, and we've been fast and furious partners ever since, although I still have, some depression that I'm working through, but I wake up and choose it every single day. It might not last, but I choose it.
Thanks, Laura. Chris, you're muted. So, okay, can you unmute, or do you want?
So sorry, guys. I find joy when I find out how to work Zoom. I honestly believe we are joy. Really, I just think it's pulling the curtain open to certain parts of who we are as a person at certain times, in the sense that when the ego takes over life, and we allow it to, then obviously its job is to just stifle all the joy that there is. But when we sort of keep the ego at bay, I think we are joy. We are, that type, because we create our own lives, don't we? So we create the joy we have, by unveiling it. I think it's always there. It's just we need to pull the curtain back on it.
Thank you.
My thinking so far.
Yeah. Welcome, Rhonda. You're more than welcome. Glad you're here. Yeah, so Karen, I just read what you wrote in there too, and we're actually going to address that in a little bit here too. So excellent point. I appreciate that very much. Would you say you're a joyful person? Some people say yes. And that's just a question to think about. Would you say you're a joyful person? And now here's where we're going to kind of start tying it all together. Well, one more question before I tie it all together. I think I say this every time I do these recovery coach performance sessions, whether virtually, with staff, in our recovery community centers, that you teach best what you most need to learn too. And in our advanced academy last week, I learned so much. So I was leading discussions that helped me learn. And when you think about recovery and you think about addiction, well, first of all, does addiction rob people of their joy? Like, look at Khalees, like, really, that one, like, that was an eyebrow raiser for her. Go ahead, process it out loud, get our conversation starting.
Okay, so going back to my joy is a deep thing. I'm not gonna lie and say that in my active addiction, I did not have fun. There were happy times. I did a lot of things, you know. But today, I I think, you know, I can tell you a time in my recovery, the first time my mom ever let me take my son out by myself. We went to the park, we got ice cream, I cried. Like, I had such a deep, moving, profound moment that my mom trusted me, and I just had joy and gratitude. And like, I guess my addiction does not rob people from joy, or maybe it does. The deep feelings, the deep feelings. I don't know, because I still loved people. I still had joy moments. So okay, I'm gonna stop there because now I'm rambling, but I don't think it does. I don't think addiction robs people of joy, if I'm being honest. That's my
Wow. Okay. Anybody else? Misha.
So I know that I used my substance to try to not feel. And I think one of those feelings is joy, right? Like I didn't want to feel sorrow. I didn't want to feel pain, but on the flip side, I couldn't feel the other good things. And I had moments of like Khalees, right? Like I had those moments, but like when I got into recovery, like those moments were so much more profound. They were so much deeper. Like, oh my gosh, I was like laughing, like gut laughter, like, you know, like it just was so much deeper. And I was like, but guess what? Those moments of pain and sorrow were also deeper too. So I think that addiction can rob people of joy because it can rob people of just feeling, just in general.
Thank you. Chris.
I'm learning how to use it now. There you go. I think that, again, we are joy. And I think that addiction just gets that curtain and slams them shut on what we already have access to. I think that you've also got all the troubles that addiction causes, you know, the ripple effect of using. And I think that when these ripple effects, when they start to come back as they do, you've got waves and waves of circumstances that just literally cover you in events that you have to work yourself out of in order to be able to see that joy again. So I think, yes, it does rob you of joy. Yeah.
Thanks. Karen.
I guess it's kind of what other people were saying, that I think there's a distinction between like the more hedonistic kind of fun that certain addictions can bring and actual like more meaningful joy. And I think you can, I mean, yes, I'm not going to necessarily tell war stories about that time when I sat in that meeting in that church basement. You know, it's going to be about the crazy, ridiculous times. But did I have a deep sense of peace and joy during those times? Probably not, you know. And also depends on the addiction, you know. If I can think about like, you know, the drinking times are more the hedonistic fun, you know, slumped over a toilet with my hands down my throat, puking my guts up. Not that joyful, you know, sorry to be, but it's, I mean, that's a horrible addiction. It's miserable. Like it gives you a kind of temporary relief from stress and anxiety in a moment. But then, you know, it's that whole, the consequences and the stuff that, you know, the price you pay for that is horrendous. So, yeah, I don't know if that's been of any use, but make of it what you will.
Help me. I like that term of hedonistic fun. I love that. Ada, and then I think I saw your hand go up, Mike, too. Yeah. Ada first.
Two things. One, joy includes others, and generally addiction is all about myself, what I need, what's important to me. And then also piggybacking on feelings. Very definitely my addiction was about changing how I felt. And it meant that even the feelings that I didn't want to change also got further away from me. So in recovery, the good news is I got my feelings back. The bad news is I got my feelings back because I got both, the ones I wanted to change and the ones that I enjoyed.
Ada, talk to me a little bit about you said joy includes others. Does it always include others?
Frequently, yes.
Okay.
I'm not going to say it's an always, but think about it. Yes, there are people who want to be hermits and never come across another human being but it still includes others then. It frequently includes your dog, your cat, your horse.
Okay.
So it's others.
Gotcha.
It doesn't have to be human others.
All right. I understood. Thanks. Mike.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. You know, that first question of yours about can we choose the joy? I personally think you can. You know, it's like anything in life. You can sort of podcast earlier, you know, and when you're stuck in something in business, for instance, and you can either just plod along and do nothing about it, and it's just the same shit every day, that hamster, or you could do something about it. So I mean, my recovery, you know, 5.5 years ago, I did something about it, you know, so I kind of made that choice. On the, you know, does addiction rob you of your joy? I think so. I think because, you know, for certainly the last 5 years of my drinking journey, I think, you know, the sense of reality is kind of out the window. You know, you're in this freaking cloud and this fog. This false perception of what joy is, where you kind of smash the whole time, and you kind of, what is happiness? And I think now with recovery, I've kind of learned what is happiness, what is joy, what actually turns me on, what gets me out of bed in the morning, is just so yeah, I think it robbed me of a lot, you know, financially, spiritually, you name it. I suppose joy and happiness is one. My perception of joy and happiness was out clubbing, traveling the world, living in business class lounges, freaking downing a bottle of Johnny Walker. That was, you know, and meeting and greeting famous people. That's what I did. And it was, in reality, my God, it was probably so depressing. And it was, now that I look back on it, so joy to me now and happiness is a very different to then. So yeah, it robbed me a lot, but got to remind myself that these sort of 5 years, it's shit. What I've achieved is as my sister reminds me, is a miracle, you know. So yeah.
Thank you, Mike.
Right.
All right, so we're talking a lot about joy. That's kind of the topic of this one. How does joy tie into recovery coaching? Here's me tying it together, you know, like, how does joy tie into recovery coaching?
Can I just ask from the recovery's perspective or the coach or in general?
What do you think?
Great question, Phil.
Ada.
I think having a certain amount of joy makes it easier to be a recovery coach, because that's how you can help the recovery you're working with find the positive things in their life that they want to make the anchors of their recovery capital.
Thanks, Ada. Chris.
Yes. Not to sound like a broken record here, but I probably will. But I think when you sort of joy is bestowed upon you sometimes, isn't it, as a person? And I think depending on a person's higher power belief and connection to things, because being in recovery is about making those connections again, isn't it? And it's becoming connected to something that you disconnected yourself from. And I think, I mean, Rhonda made put a message there saying that it's better, used to go to sleep and it's just sad, but it used to go to sleep and wish that she never woke up. And I think a lot of us go through that stage just before we do bounce back, because where else is there to go? And the person in that sort of state does not know joy. You know, there's no connection there at all. And I think as a coach, it's Rhonda also said, sorry, Rhonda, you also said that joy is infectious. And this is true. And I think sometimes it's good to reveal to somebody what an emotion is. Sorry, not an emotion. It's a state, isn't it? What a state is, by at least revealing that state in yourself. Does that make sense? Am I making sense there?
You're taking after Khalees. You're talking it out loud.
Yeah, I'm
processing out loud. It's all good. Yeah. It's all good.
So yeah, in that sense, I think for joy is something that somebody that's just coming out of recovery, they've not seen joy for a very, very long time in most cases, and you know, and don't remember what joy is. And to find that joy again, you wouldn't know what joy is until you actually had it. Gotcha. It's all right to try and explain joy, but to really experience joy, you have to experience it. You know, I mean, it's knowing what hot and cold is. It's knowing what joy is. There's a difference between knowing it and experiencing it. You know.
Thank you, Chris. So it's thanks.
Yeah,
Laura.
And yeah, for me, how does it tie into recovery coaching is I think as a recovery coach, we get to model transformation for the people that we're coaching. And so, like Chris just said, you know, we can talk about joy, but to really truly embody it and model that as a contrast to what we experienced during our active use times, whether that was being robbed of joy or robbed of peace or whatever else, but then to be able to show that we have crossed that bridge and transformed into truly joyful people, I think is really an amazing thing to share.
Thank you, Laura. Khalees.
I think, I guess Laura has encouraged me, I guess influenced me. I've been reading a lot about astrology lately and like learning about myself with astrology and stuff. And I was reading about myself and it was saying like, I'm a very deep people person. I love people. I've always loved people. And whenever I am talking to people, our students, people in our community, I'm coaching a couple of people, like I just love so deep and have so much joy in those conversations. And it's not planned. I can't tell you exactly what happened that made it a joyful experience. And I can't tell you a script or anything. It's just the presence of seeing, connecting, hearing people. And I'm very optimistic and positive, and whenever I'm joyful in what I do and who I am, and I role modeled that as a recovery coach, and then I think it is infectious and contagious, and as CCAR says, transform people, right? And if I'm having those moments with the recoveries, they feel that. It's that vibe. I'm telling you, the aura, they feel that. And I guess that's why they keep calling and people keep connecting, because it's a mutual beneficial connection and a shared experience of joy with each other.
And I don't think that's new to you in recovery, Khalees. That's probably what made you an excellent bartender as well. Nathan.
Oh, I agree, because I think, you know, I often joke that if I've said to a few people recently, you know, if we treated everybody who came into our life as recoveries or organizations like they were our guests, You know, if we didn't call them service users, if we called them guests, if we treated them like that. And then that brought, because every time I check into a nice hotel, I get a lovely little bit of joy when they treat me nice, you know? And so if we can pass that on, but I think what gives me joy almost every day now is just knowing that I have a pathway to share with people where sometimes they know what recovery coaching is, they just don't have a name for it, or they've been doing different parts of it and nobody's ever given them permission. And it's not that I'm giving them permission, but I'm just validating, you know, what they are feeling inside. And when I see those like sparks and the lights go on and the ears perk up and the conversation flows, man, my heart is just full of joy at those times as a coach. And I think as a person in recovery, I remember the first time I saw all the daffodils across Buckingham Palace when I'd come back to England. And I didn't think I could find joy in daffodils. And I still remember that moment. And that has to be 23 years ago or more. And it's just that feeling that there is peace in the world. These daffodils are rising every spring and it is new and we can renew. And yeah, so finding joy in the little things now is just good.
Where do I want to go next? Anybody else?
I saw him.
Could well, let me say that. And this kind of goes to what Karen had put in the chat a little bit too. Is there a time when while recovery coaching that you could have too much joy, or it could be inappropriate? And do you have an example of what that might look like?
Sure. When they are in a very hard space, maybe there's been a death in the family, maybe there's something really heavy they're dealing with. And so needing to meet them where they're at would mean I could not express my joy. I could let them know I was happy they're wanting to talk about it, but it wouldn't be appropriate in that time and space.
Gotcha. Thank you. Chris.
Yeah, you can't force joy, can you? You know, you can't be with another person and say we're going to be joyful for the next hour, you know, and then expect that to happen. So, and it would be wrong. I mean, you can't change a person's state. A person changes a person's state. Oh, no, you can enable a person to change state, I suppose. But it's the person that's putting the effort in themselves that will change that state. Music will change a person's state. And anchors will, I suppose. But no, you can't force joy in the same way that you can't force a person to be happy. If, you know, they're at that moment in time unhappy. However, that said, you know, you can being there with a person, again, I'm going to say about being connected, but being there with a person, being connected to another will bring out states like happiness and joy. So, but it would be wrong to force it because it can't be done. I'm done. Okay.
Thanks, Chris. Laura.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know what's going on. I can't see any of you anymore. So I just, dropped my video for a moment. All right. So Kim, I love what Karen wrote in the chat because I mean, oh my gosh, I see that all too often, unfortunately, not necessarily in recovery coaching, but in other parts of life, all parts of life, really. And there's this definite toxic positivity in a lot of different cultures and social groups that always talk about love and light. And it's like, shut up. Yes, there's love and light, but there's also, dark and other, perceived negative things. So let's be real. And I try really hard to find that middle ground. And sometimes it's difficult, as it is for people I might be coaching. I had an advisor once, not a coach, but an advisor, who said to me, Why can't you just be happy? And that totally was defeating to me because, well, if I could just be happy, then I wouldn't need your advice, would I? And, it just negated my whole experience. So I think it is something really important that you brought up here that I know I have to be mindful of, is that to be present in the moment with the person, because they're not feeling the same thing I'm feeling, but to also still be that role model for joy, but authenticity most of all.
Thank you, Laura. Appreciate that very much. So here's where my years of experience have landed me, that I fully believe in that transformed people transform people, right? And in this coaching sessions and in many conversations, I ask people what actually transforms, so, and we always get it down to that it's some movement, if you will, from soul sickness to soul health, right? That we go that level of depth, that something transformed, certainly in my soul, that I was really sick. The light was almost out. I was almost dead. And then recovery refueled that, reignited it, found a spark that slid into a fire and a slow burn. Now that I get older, it's not a roaring fire anymore. It's just kind of a warmth. I've also considered another word for soul is your spirit. People use energy, spirit, soul, whatever you like, or a vibe, like Elise was talking about. Maybe it's the vibe. And how many people here have heard of fruits of the spirit? Fruits of the spirit. So, Khalees, Google it. You got your phone nearby, or can you not do it? So you could Google fruit of the spirit. And Ada.
It is a very Christian, bit fundamental, love, joy, peace, happiness, that kind of thing.
Right.
That if you're supposed to love God correctly, you'll automatically have those according to them.
Right. And that's the way they frame it. But what were the first few spirits you mentioned?
Love, joy, and peace.
Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, right? And those are all attributes, however you get there, I think, that are desirable in people. Would you agree to that? Oh, I think she gone. So one of the where I was getting with that, there she is. If that is love, joy, patience, peace, kindness, I didn't mention anything about how you get there or how that would happen, but I think they're desirable traits in recovery coaching, right? And so I do like this term, fruit of the spirit, because that's what you're getting to. If your spirit is well tended to, well taken care of, shining brightly lit, whatever you want to say, that some of these things happen naturally. So the next question is, that's just one way to look at what we're talking about. Not saying that's the way you need to look at it, but what I would like, the next question is, how do you become more joyful? How would you do that? Chris?
I'm going to sound a little bit corny here, I think, but it really is. I think when you're at that stage of being low, it really is about giving back. So I really do believe that as soon as you start to have that feeling that you are contributing something, is when you start to build joy back. And I don't believe you can until me personally, I don't believe that you can really get to any.
Oh, you just went muted just real quick. Chris, you just muted. The last sentence, we couldn't hear you. You muted.
It deafened me out. There you go. So yeah, that's what.
All right. Khalees.
I think this is a really interesting question because yesterday my mom and I in the car, we were talking about growth, and I like to do a lot of self-reflection on what's changed. And I was reflecting on, since we started our RCA journey, I've grown a lot, and looking at how do we find joy. What was your question again?
How do you become more joyful?
Following your heart. When you act with what aligns with inside, I think that you find more joy. Because I was thinking, like I said, I was thinking about when we started, and my mom was like, you are, the way you approach conversations now, the way you do things, it's just, there's no ego, there's no malice. I'm not in it for me or anything. There's no motive. I honestly, there's no motive in my action. I just follow my heart because I care, what feels good. And I think I've become more joyful in my life because I do what feels good, doing what's right, what aligns with me and my values, and knowing what I stand for, my beliefs, and acting with that with no motive. How can I be a resource? How can I help? And I think before, if I'm reflecting, 2 years ago, I was in a not a great job. I was unhappy. I was trying to be like, I need to pay my bills, get stuff done. There was motive in those actions. There was motive in that place. There was anger, resentment of the job, everything. Where today I act with my heart, and there's no motive for anything I do.
Thanks, Khalees. Ada, I like what you wrote in the chat too. Ada says, looking at whatever is positive around you, no matter where you are, by looking at someone, something other than self. Yes. How do you become more joyful? Anybody else?
Maybe it's when I allow myself to experience more joy. I mean, if it's a choice, then yeah, I can allow myself. For me personally, I believe I do experience more joy when I am being myself, and when I am, I guess, grounded in reality and accepting of the way things are in the moment.
Yeah, and this is a question I ask myself too, right? Because I like to feel the joy inside. It makes me, I think, a better person. So I know if I start to sit in my one place or in one place too long, I get a little squirrely. And so I just don't like being cooped up. So I found that walks in the woods are one way to really take care of myself. And once I'm out there, I like to find things that I'm in wonder of. So it's a walk. I've also found some new authors that I'm really enjoying reading, especially at this stage in my life. That brings me joy to find some new insights and to continually learn. I also last night, I could have watched a baseball game. I could have watched another Netflix show. I could have played Golf Clash or something on my iPad. And I said, none of those are like, they're just passing time. So I opened up my book and I took some colored pens and just started to doodle, just to draw, just because it brought me joy. It's not anything that's it's just doodling, but I just like the process of creation, of creating something. My sponsor told me decades ago, he said, when you're creating, you're closest to your creator. And I just have always loved that. So I'm starting to do that more. And that's how I can come in the next day or prepare to be maybe just a little tick closer or along the joy continuum, if you will. Because I think the key messages, I'm going to share some key messages, and I've done this with all the recovery community centers, and this is what they've come up with. Why joy is, I think, is an integral part of recovery coaching. And yeah, you don't have to be exuberant or tell bad jokes at the wrong time or be inappropriate. But I think overall, joy is a desirable trait in a recovery coach. Somebody said, open the door and let some sunshine in, give them some sunshine. And I also believe that you can't really fake joy. You can't fake it because people can see that. And one way is that the coaches that are most effective in CCAR, they love what they're doing. And they say that all the time. They just love what they're doing. And it's hard to fake that. I also believe joy is contagious. Joy attracts. And I think in recovery coaching, attitude is everything. So if you're grateful, you're at peace, you're kind, you have joy, that goes a long way in establishing your presence with an individual. So those are some of the key messages I have. Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, I think that's quite interesting. And I think what I personally found out a lot about myself, that when I'm not happy and I'm not joyful, I'm generally stressed, and I look back and shit, well, why am I? What is it? And, one of the things that holds me back, but I'm a freaking procrastinator at the best of times. And, being an owner of 2 businesses and, getting involved in all this kind of stuff. And I read a lot, like you, I immerse myself in knowledge. Typically, obviously now it's moving towards, I've explored this area, this sober coaching, that for a while now, but if you look at business books and all of that, and it's very much, do the next thing. I find that if I'm just doing, I had a great temporary sponsor when I got into AA a long time ago, and he gave me some structure, and he was a business guy, you know what I mean? So we related, and and it's almost like just brush your teeth every morning. Just do that one little do that one little reading in the morning. Just do the small little things. And I've kept doing that. I listen to these guys, and I just do the next right thing. And if I stop doing them, something goes a bit wonky, and it's like you at nighttime, Netflix and that. If I can just prepare myself for the next day, or go and force myself to go take the dog for a walk, no, force is the wrong thing, but it's working out the trigger points that are going to make me unhappy, but in the same balance will actually make me happy if I just do the next right thing. And I think from a coaching point of view, it's almost practice what you preach. It's like I read freaking so many business books and how to do this and how to stop procrastinating, how to freaking sleep better, how to whatever. And every good coach will say, don't pay me if you're not going to take action. Mm-hmm. So for me, I need to actually take ownership of, I just sometimes got to remind myself to take action personally. And that'll also make me a better coach and actually probably make me happier and less stressful.
I love that you talk in that way, because my reading is interesting. Is I'll pick up a book and then I'll have a nugget just hit me. And when I was talking to one of my coaches about that, she said, "Oh, the thought crystallized for you." So I always had this thought or this attitude, in my head, but then somebody would put it in words and go, bam, that's like a crystal. That's just turned into a crystallized the thought. And one that's happened many years ago when you talk about books, Mike, and leadership was, I read a lot of John Maxwell's books, and he said the number one goal of a leader is to create other leaders. And I just went, bam. And it kind of changed like everything I was thinking about leadership, just in that one sentence, was to create other leaders, and so I'm not looking to like change. I just look to like, wow, that one really rings true. And the most recent, go ahead.
Yeah, and I just, what I learned over time as well, and also learned from other guys, is that, even if you just take 1 or 2 golden nuggets out of a mastermind, out of something, and then just accept the fact. It's almost like, they talk about AA meetings. Not everyone's going to be right for you. No,
Right.
that chair is not. It's just finding your groove. So I just accept that if I'm reading a book, if I can just take one or two golden nuggets, that penny drop moment, or listening in on Zoom meetings, or you just think, and knowledge is quite powerful, So yeah, I agree with you.
I think the nuggets for me early on in recovery were the AA slogans that I just went, oh my, one day at a time. I was like,
Keep it simple.
I was like, well, what the heck? I know. Yeah, right. Exactly. And when I was back in AA so long ago, it was keep it simple, stupid. And they emphasized the stupid. Can't do that today. That wouldn't be politically correct, right? Easy does it. Oh my gosh. Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any thoughts about messages or key messages? Yeah, the Parker J. Palmer book I'm reading now is On the Brink of Everything, his latest one. So it's had a few nuggets in it for me too. And I probably will get to those other ones too, Laura. So again, I think, it's about attitude. It's about working on our presence, what that's like, and be aware of that. If nobody has anything else, I'm more than glad to wrap it up a little. Oh, Khalees, great. Thank you.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So I like when we talked about in recovery coaching, attitude is everything. And I completely align with what you were saying, gratitude, peace, things like that. And we've talked before, not everybody can be a recovery coach. Can somebody, I guess my question is how could somebody attribute these skills to maybe move into a genuine recovery coach role if they don't actually have the attitude?
You answered your own question.
No, I'm asking master coach here. I'm taking advantage of this coaching for coaching session.
Dude, you just answered it. If you don't have the attitude, how can you be an effective recovery coach? If you're going to be arrogant, mean, treat people like objects, do as I say, not as I do, just do what I tell you, you're not going to be that effective. So when we hire, right, just because people are trained in a curriculum does not make them good coaches. We've talked about that. We hire basically on attitude. If a person has the right attitude, they're teachable. And the attitude I look for, and other people look for different things, on our team, is I'm old school. I look for the attitude of gratitude. If they're grateful to be alive, grateful to have an opportunity to work in the field, grateful to work for our organization, and that shines through their interview, then you probably have a pretty good shot. You're a really good candidate. I say the same, and that's what we look for in our coaches. I don't know. Can you shift person's attitude? Maybe, but can you invest in the time? And I don't know if sometimes you can, sometimes you can't.
I think I'll just share from my personal experience. I think I've always had the attitude. I think that within 2 years plus, I've worked on those skills and I have dramatically improved, but I've always had the heart and the ability to care for somebody. And I don't think that you can't make anybody have a heart. You can't make anybody genuinely have empathy and compassion for others. And I think it's really interesting you said that, because Mom and I in the car were talking, and we see people do stuff all the time, and we were like, what is different about us? What is really different? And it's like, we always try to just have relationships. We try to just really talk to people. We just want to have a conversation. And people who have conversations are genuine are like, you can't replace that. You can't buy a genuine personality. You can't buy a heart.
Mike.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree, again, being a study of business books and that kind of stuff, and, scaling up. And it's really, there's an old principle that guys will look at one of these kind of things, and it's, you hire for attitude, not for skill, because that attitude, gratitude, culture, all that sits here. You can train this stuff up, the skill. If you got someone sitting up here with so much skill and zero of this, you ain't got a chance in business. That's just not going to work. And people make that mistake all the time. And I would imagine I agree with Phil. This up here doesn't make this a good coach. Or it really doesn't,
Thanks.
You can't train attitude. You can't train good people or a good person, and certainly in recovery, good morals and good standards and that stuff. I don't think.
Sandra.
Firstly, I'd like to apologize for leaving. I had an emergency outside I had to deal with. Coming in on the back of this, I'm going to disagree somewhat with that you can't train people with attitudes, because how is that holding hope for people to change? Doesn't that go against the very principle that we base everything we do on, is that we hold the hope for people that they can make that change. And maybe the onus is on us to demonstrate, maybe through skills, as Khalees asked there, that we can train people in skills, and in the implementation of those skills, their attitude may very well change. But I don't think we can sit here and say, if you don't have the attitude, that's it. You're never going to get there. It's just the way we're working in reverse. We always have to be open to how do we get our message across, and maybe that is skilling somebody up and mentoring them and giving them that bit of extra time. And if the attitude doesn't change, well and good, but I don't think we can put a block and say, you don't have the attitude, you're not getting in. That's exclusionary in my book.
I think I agree with you. I'm purely talking that was purely from a business point of view, in terms of, for instance, my trade. That, if we're talking sober coaching and that, maybe it's a bit different, but I think the outcomes, there's a level of skill you can train, but it's about attitude. I think attitude and culture.
But
how do you train someone in attitude and good morals?
Don't we have to monitor our own attitude at the start? And if we're putting out that judgment, doesn't that say something about us to start off with?
Right.
So that's what I'm challenging.
Well, this is how I respond to the challenge, that if I was coaching someone, I don't care what their attitude is. I will coach anybody, anytime, and I'll be very curious about who they are, what they are. I'm not going to put them in our emergency department and train them there. I'm not going to hope their attitude changes while we invest time, money, and effort. So as a paid recovery coach, if you have a poor attitude, you're going to have a lot to work before we do believe people will change and all that. So it's just a different setting. I was speaking more from an employer, because I want people that can contribute to our organizational culture, not take away from it. Does that make sense to you?
Oh, it does. Yeah. And I suppose I'm speaking very, I obviously missed the nuance of that conversation, but in general, I would have to say that we always have to hold the hope for people that they can change, and yes, within parameters and within capacity to give them time and energy. But I can't start at the starting point that because your attitude is this, then I have the right to say it'll never change. I can't be that starting point person.
And I agree. And because all our attitudes change, whether you're in recovery or not. They grow and shift and change all the time. So, and our number one belief as a recovery coach is that recovery is possible for anyone. And if you don't hold that belief, then you don't belong in the field. No matter what the person's attitude is, you have to believe that recovery is possible for anyone, right? Without a doubt. And I do for sure. I just don't want them to spend 3 or 4 years doing damage to the people we serve as an employee while they figure that out. Because they will. Well, I've really enjoyed the conversation. thanks to everybody for showing up today. I appreciate each and every one of you. I believe in you. I hope you have a sparkling rest of your day.